Hello, doing a Patsy Rudenberg exercise, long neglected exercises. In this exercise, it's an everyday object. Describe an everyday object. Describe it without using phrases, thingy, sort of, which are my favorite phrases. Useless repetitions, ums and ahs. This is like eliminating 50% of my speech. Without using hand gestures to shape or illustrate, and keep your hands under control as you describe the object. All right, so a rectangle hung upon the wall, glowing, showing movies, showing dramas, showing comedies. All the lights off, it illuminates the room. Sometimes it's for boobs. Sometimes boobs are shown on the screen of it. It's television. Number 2, I use this object to go to and from work. It has only 2 wheels, a steel frame, a chain connects the 2 wheels, and it has pedals that I use to power it with my legs. Quiet. It is a quiet vehicle. Just the sound of tires going across gravel, going across the bump as I am going across the trestle bridge on my way to work. It is a bike. Third one. It has whirling blades. The air whooshes through it. The one that I am thinking of slowly rotates back and forth. See, that's emotion again. The one I'm thinking of, the head of it rotates back and forth, while at the same time the blade, like the propeller of a airplane, whirls within its wire cage. Thank goodness it has a wire cage, or undoubtedly it would slice my fingers as I reach to turn it off. That is a fan. So that is the exercise for everyday objects. The next exercise is extraordinary object. Now do the same description exercise as above, but with an extraordinary object, maybe a fantastic invention. Is this a fantastic invention of my own devising? Suddenly other forms of language will emerge. Simile, imagery, and rich use of adjectives. Once more, search for precision in your description. No gesture, no useless verbiage. Stick with simple, essential words that you will really need in this instance. Be precise, that is, exact about the exact nature and experience of, say, a moment of fear, joy. The exercise is drawing on the language rooted in your right brain. Say a moment of fear, joy. Okay. Coming to the edge and looking over into the vastness of both space and time. The placard says that a river carved this over millennia. And as I look out and I feel, and the vista opens up before my eyes. Vista also opens up in my mind, opening my mind up, um, opening my mind up, and I am like a tiny grain of sand tumbling in a giant river, emptying into a vast ocean of time. That is me describing my experience coming to not the Grand Canyon, but the little Grand Canyon, which is close by, and having read this placard and having a moment of epiphany about my place in time. Just a kind of a little glimpse of a feeling of my moment in time. So yeah, that would be that exercise, I guess. Tell a story in the first person, either fiction or nonfiction, concerning, saying, an embarrassing or humiliating event. It could be funny or tragic. For some reason, most listeners connect best to the story, and this exercise has a snowballing effect. It encourages others in the group to tell similar stories. Since I'm doing all these exercises alone, which may be a part of which is definitely holding me back in this. In the course of the exercise, you must reel something about yourself. It is a liberating exercise as long as you don't get too psychological. Try to remain anecdotal and matter of fact, not confessional. In the course of this exercise, you suddenly discover how you can have power over others, how you can make people listen to your words. Yes, the story must have structure and remain active. So structure, we're probably going for a beginning, middle, and an end. The events must keep happening. Do not allow the speaker to dwell or divert from the order of events. One day in my 9th grade English class, I got up for some reason. Probably class had not started. And I got up and I kind of stretched and I turned around and kind of surveyed the class, all of my classmates. And there was this girl, this pretty girl, Anne Marie Benson was her name, the prettiest, kind of sunniest, most kind of friendly girl in the class who I don't think had ever paid attention to me before. But she looked up and she broke into a smile and she noticed me. She was looking at me and she was smiling at me. And I felt so puffed up, like, wow, this is it. This is it. Finally, after being the very much kind of the lowest rung of this entire, of my all the kids there, at least that's how I felt. The lowest rung. Finally, here was a young woman who I thought was amazing, and she was looking at me, and I smiled at her, and I said, hello, and she said, your fly is undone. And I looked down, and I zip back up my fly, got completely flushed, completely embarrassed, turned back around, slumped back down in my seat, and was completely deflated, completely just embarrassed out of my mind. That now, as a 50-plus-year-old guy, I still remember that moment. I still remember feeling horribly embarrassed. So yeah, that is the embarrassing story. I think that's the one I would probably always pull out of my pocket. Next one is myths and fairy tales. Have a session telling homemade myths and fairy tales. This is the favorite exercise for children, but works just as well for adults. The more the speaker can dramatize, believe the material, and make contact with the audience through the power of narrative, the better the connection between speaker and listener. The aim is to tell a story so that we can learn from it and are not just diverted by the effects. If the voice effects help the story, all is well and good, but be strict and economic on this point and try to concentrate on words instead. In fact, if you can work towards an ending, perhaps your tale will contain a moral. You might learn in the process of this work how disconnected we are from storytelling, how undramatic we make great stories sound. But working from a need to tell will quickly reveal how exciting storytelling can be. Such is the case with ancient bardic traditions. Stories of this kind are powerful and work on many levels of understanding. The child will hear certain things that the adult will miss, and vice versa. In other words, we hear different messages in the stories at different times in our lives. It is thrilling exercise to do with a mixed age group. You'll probably find that simple language works best along with short, active sentences. Maybe a hero or heroine is at the center of the tale. Maybe there is also an antagonist. Also think of ways that you might arrange your audience for greater effect, perhaps in a circle. But always draw your audience into the story. Never leave us excluded. Depend on our need to know what happened next. Wow. And this is something where I could just kind of launch into the story of a young boy discovering a monster at the bottom of a lake, and that the controlling this monster is this mysterious figure, Dr. Shadow, and how the friends are all kind of creeping around this valley town on an adventure to try and to rescue rescue a kid who has been taken by Dr. Shadow. And I could do all that, but Jesus Christ, that is asking a hell of a lot, and which is why I think I skipped this. I've been stuck on these exercises. Let's just okay, we've got that. And then next one is, because that could be a whole NaNoWriMo exercise of coming up with this kind of a tale. I don't even know if that's a myth. That's just maybe a story. The next one is epic storytelling. One of the tasks that actors especially must perform when they play the great classic texts is realizing epic stories with truth. So, the stories have a cost, and the price of speaking them is high. It's going to take all your resources, Rodenberg says. And, there's this thing here of saying, unfortunately, we have a tendency to kind of we have many of us deaden the dramatic effects. We lower the cost of speaking because we speak from a reduced need. We tended to value a great story in order to make it immediate and intelligible, only using language and references that are close to us. We make poetic stories sound prosaic and lively tales sound dead. If we allow our stories to take on an epic scale and an urgent bigness, our language, choice of words, and focus become transformed and more pressing. The size of what we say increases. The need swells. The language becomes more poetic, vivid, and intense. We begin to need words as we never needed them before. The need for words. Useless words are generally abandoned, and the story is told graphically, yet simply. So, yeah. This we're getting into kind of a gigantic thing, and we have an example here of from Sophocles, Oedipus the king, with the report of the attendant, who could be a man or woman, at the death of Jocasta, Oedipus's mother and wife, and Oedipus's self-blinding. It's all something that's told to the audience. Try speaking this monologue aloud. The need each word to put across the story. Here, I'm gonna try it. Messenger, I'll tell you, she killed herself. You haven't seen it, and count yourselves lucky. I shall never be able to forget it. That image will always be with me now. I was there, and I can tell you what happened as accurately as I can. When she rushed into the palace in anguish, she went straight into her bedroom, tearing her hair out in handfuls and muttering like a madwoman. She slammed the door and locked herself in, and we heard her shouting something about Laius, her first husband, who's been dead for years, and the night they conceived the son who was to kill him and breed misbegotten children on his own mother. Then it became confused. She screamed and beat upon the bed where she had conceived a husband by a husband and children by a child. I heard all that. Her actual death was behind the locked door, and Oedipus broke in at that point, raving up and down the hall and howling for a sword, so that all our eyes were fixed on him, and we forgot what she was doing. That wife of mine, that wife and mother, he shouted, her fertile belly twice as if been harvested, me and my children. Then he suddenly made for the door. None of us told him, as though some premonition suddenly told him she was there. He bellowed and shouted and shoulder-charged the doors and kicked them till the bolts and hinges shattered, and he stumbled in. We saw her slowly turning in the air, swinging slightly like a pendulum, strung up by the neck. She'd hanged herself. The king ran to her, loosed the rope, and lifted her down, all the while groaning heartbreakingly like an animal. He laid her gently on the floor, and then, this was unbearable, the worst of all, there were 2 golden brooches pinned on her dress. He opened them up, held them high in the air at arm's length, and plunged them down into his eyeballs, screaming and groaning that his own guilt and suffering were too great for his eyes to see it, and that now they would both be in darkness forever, that he would never see again those he should never have seen, nor ever love those he should never have loved. That's the way he went on, cursing himself and stabbing his eyelids again and again, till his face was a mass of blood and tears, not drops of blood, but like a thunderstorm or a cloudburst gushing down his cheeks. So they embraced in the crime, and embraced in the punishment too, man and wife together. They were happy, you know, for a long time. The family was famous and considered fortunate. But from today, horror, pain, and grief, all the suffering men have name for, will make their names notorious forever. And then at that, we'll take a drink. And indeed, I have to say, Ruddenberg picks good stuff and exhausting stuff to read. So, and having to communicate the tragic events have just happened as though freshly experienced. And the story is told with a structured way. It has an important beginning, a middle, and an end. Yeah, we start with her, and then him coming in, and then him discovering her swinging, and then him taking the pins and driving his nails in, and then at the end, just kind of the capper of like they were a fortunate, happy family, but now they'll be known for this forever. Don't pull off the rawness of the words. Be specific and make each word concrete. Trust the tale and the telling. And then we've got an exercise again, which, I mean, I guess going through it this way is a good idea. Am I going to do this daily? No, this isn't a daily exercise. It's an interesting thing to kind of make you think about stuff, but it's probably not unless I was actually in a class and forced to do this day in and day out to see improvement for it. So I'm going to pause there. I've actually worked on it a little bit. My vocal video for today. I think I will stop this and then I'll start a no ums video where I can just talk about how I'm going to handle this going forward. All right, I've been Jay. More videos later.